Okay, thank you. I think we have to move on to the next talk, which is from Pauline Trainard, who will also talk about a model, but using a different formalism to tailor the model to patients and treat them in a personalized manner.
Hello everyone. So my name is Pauline Trainard. I'm a postdoc in Institut Curie in Paris. Is that better? And I'm going to present a work on the patient-specific logic modeling of prostate cancer. This work is part of the European project PRECISE, which stands for Personalized Engine for Cancer Integrative Study and Evaluation. So the goal of this project is to analyze and integrate molecular data of prostate cancer to advance the understanding of the mechanisms of the disease, in particular resistance mechanisms. So there are 9 partners involved in this project that contribute with different approaches and different objectives, such as integrating data and literature-driven knowledge with network inference, characterizing intratumor heterogeneity with clonal architecture analysis, and phylogenetic analysis, and drug prediction studies. So our involvement is in logic modeling of prostate cancer. So our objective is to use all the results of the other partners and build a generic model of prostate cancer, and then generate from this generic model patient-specific models that can integrate proteomic data sets to propose individual drugs or combinations of drugs. So it's an ongoing work, and I'm going to present the first steps of this project. So to build a logic model, we first have to build a network, and we build this network semi-manually. The nodes that are present in the network can be either inputs, so there are non-regulated nodes that represent microenvironmental conditions, such as growth factors, androgen, and so on. They can be regulated entities, genes or proteins that are relevant for prostate cancer, or they can be outputs of the model, so unregulated nodes that represent phenotypic outcomes, such as proliferation, apoptosis, and so on. To build the model, we rely on mainly on public knowledge. So we make sure that our model includes the genes frequently mutated in prostate cancer. We perform a review of the literature to identify the genes and proteins that are important for the regulation of prostate cancer. We use public databases such as SCSN that Fabian already talked about, which is developed in our lab, and OmniPath, which is an aggregation of signaling databases that is developed in Julio Saez Rodriguez lab, who is involved in the project, and that can be easily searched with the Python module PyPath. So this module allows us, for instance, here to extract a subgraph with the shortest path between 3 different MAPK genes and one in green and one TNF receptor gene in blue. And we get the intermediary nodes in orange, and we also get all the sources and references that are associated with each interaction. So this is a valuable resource. Then we also use data analysis, in particular pathway analysis. So we use a tool called ROMA for representation of module activity. It's a pathway analysis tool developed in our lab as well that identifies pathways that displays the greatest variance between in a tumor and normal samples of prostate cancer. And so this allows us to identify pathways that should be included in the model, and also to identify the top contributing genes to these pathways. And finally, we will use the results of different network inference methods from partners involved in the project, namely IBM in Zurich and the University of Darmstadt as well. Then to turn our network into a logic model, we need to associate each node with a logic rule that defines how this node is regulated. And so each node is represented by a discrete variable, which is usually a Boolean variable, as an abstraction of activity level. So this is a formalism that, for those of you who were here this morning, was already presented by Claudine Chaouia. Usually, we use this kind of standard logic rules, where a regulated node that has activators and inhibitors will need at least one activator and no inhibitor present in the system to be activated. But sometimes, based on the literature, we can specify some logic rules that are specific, that are more precise for the mechanisms that we identify. And here is an example where to activate Caspase-9, we need at least this activator and at least one of these two. So we choose a logic modeling formalism because it's a simple formalism, so it's a convenient way to model regulatory and signaling networks and large networks without any kinetic parameter, so we don't need a parameter estimation contrary to the formalism that we have seen before with Fabian. But we will see that it still allows to integrate some heterogeneous data. Usually it is used to provide a qualitative analysis, but here we will also see that with stochastic simulations we can get continuous results as probabilities. So indeed, this is how we simulate our model. We use the software Mabos, which is also developed in our lab. So we set some initial probabilities for the nodes of the system, so probabilities that they will be active or inactive at the beginning of the simulations. In particular, we do this for the inputs of the model. And then Mabos generates stochastic trajectories in the asynchronous transition graph defined by the signaling pathways with a Monte Carlo kinetic algorithm. And so we can display these stochastic trajectories that are continuous time Markov chains as a transient dynamics. And we usually we also focus on the final probabilities for all the nodes of the model, and in particular for the output. Then with this formalism, it's really easy to perturb the model, for instance, by introducing mutations. So by fixing the value of one node to 0 or 1, and we can see the effect that it has on the final probabilities. So to validate the model, a first validation consists in simulating the model in different environmental conditions and check that the final probabilities are coherent with what we expect. So for instance, proliferation in proliferating condition, apoptosis when we add TNF-alpha. We can also simulate different mutation scenarios, so to see how introducing mutations will affect these behaviors. We can do this for mutations, combinations of mutations that have been observed in patient samples, and also for new combinations of mutations. So for instance, here in apoptotic conditions, we see that the this probability decreases. Then once we have validated the generic model, we want to use it to make personalized predictions. And to do this, we will integrate patient-specific molecular data. So the difficulty here is that we have heterogeneous data, genetic and expression data. So the genetic data, we have already seen how to integrate it. It's quite straightforward in logic modeling. In contrast, the expression data requires further processing, either to discretize it or to normalize it before integrating. And then depending on this processing, we can integrate it in different ways, either as initial conditions for the nodes in the model or as mutations. And we can also compare their values to the steady states of the model at the end of the simulation. And in addition, we can compare the outputs of the model to clinical data that we have. So for the processing of expression data, we have implemented a simple pipeline to decide how to process the data depending on some criteria that I'm not going to detail, but the goal is to classify the expression distribution of each gene across all the samples that we have in 3 categories: zero-inflated, unimodal, and bimodal, so based on the shape of the distribution. And then depending on the category, we use a different method to either discretize or normalize. So for instance, zero-inflated and unimodal distributions will be discretized by an outlier method, so basically it's a tail selection. They can be normalized by a linear or sigmoidal transformation. And when we find some bimodal distributions in the TCGA data that we have used, in that case we use Gaussian mixture models that is a bit more precise. So in the end we get molecular profiles for each patient in the data. So we use TCGA data with 333 patient data and a bit less, well, half of the data for expression data. And we simulate the model for each of these patients. The model is going to be altered either with mutations or with different initial probabilities. And in the end, we get a table of all the final probabilities for the nodes of the model, and in particular for the outputs. Here, for instance, you see the distribution of the 3 outputs that are best described in our model: proliferation, quiescence, and apoptosis. And then we wonder if we can relate this result to the clinical data associated with this molecular data. So there are different types of clinical data that could be used. There is a prostate-specific antigen level, tumor cellularity, but for now we focus on the Gleason group, which is a grading system that is commonly used as a prognosis method in prostate cancer. So it classifies the tumors in 4 groups. And so when we check if the outputs of the model correlate with this group, indeed we see some significant correlations. For instance, the probabilities of the proliferation classified with the different groups correlates. You can see that the peak corresponding to low proliferation decreases between the group 1 and the group 4, and the peak corresponding to high proliferation increases. And for apoptosis, this is significant as well. So the peak that corresponds to a high apoptosis is shifted a bit to the right between the group 1 and the group 4. So this is the first validation of our patient-specific simulations. Now we are investigating a more sophisticated method to relate the results of the simulation to the clinical data. So we have tried some unsupervised classification methods. So simple methods such as PCA for now don't work really well. There is no clear clustering, especially when we color the simulations by the Gleason group. What we can see is that it works a bit better with when we use the PCA on a list of selected nodes that are genes in the model than based on the outputs. So this is because the outputs, for now, most of the outputs are not well described in the model, and so it suggests that we should describe them better and work on their description. We have also tried some supervised classification methods to predict the Gleason score based on simulation results, so with a support vector machine or with linear discriminant analysis to predict only Gleason 1 and Gleason 4. So the idea here is not to get great predictions of the Gleason score, because we know that the logic model selects only a part of the molecular data that we have, and it loses a lot. But the goal is to see if with the probabilities output we can still get some prediction that could show that the model keeps sufficient amount of relevant data. But still we would like to get a better prediction than now. It's a bit low, especially compared to what you can see in prostate cancer signature publications. And also another goal of this analysis is to compare how the model performs when we integrate different types of molecular data into the model. And this, we use this to check that the way we integrate each type of molecular data is relevant and results in better patient-specific simulations. And so we have tried different ways of integration, and indeed we see that when we integrate all the molecular data that we have, mutations, CNA, RNA-seq, and proteomics data, we get better prediction for the Gleason group. So this is an ongoing work, and we have to use, we still have to investigate some more sophisticated methods, and we would like to get more data to do this as well. So in conclusion, we can see that logic modeling and stochastic modeling allow to integrate mechanistic knowledge and multi-omics molecular data for large networks into a simple formalism. We are still investigating the correlation of model simulations and clinical data to validate this model. We have, as a prospect, we would like to perform some model optimization based on perturbation experiments to improve the description of the model. And so the goal of this project remains to predict patient-specific drug treatments, personalized drug treatments. I would like to acknowledge all the people from my lab, the CISBio group at Institut Curie, and also all the people from the PRECISE consortium, and in particular my co-authors, Laurence Calzone, Jonas Beal, Emmanuel Barrio, Julio Saez Rodriguez, Luis Tobalina. Thank you for your attention.
Do you have any questions?
My question is about the first part of the talk when you said that you integrate the inferred network with the one with the prior knowledge. So what type of inferred network do you have, and how do you integrate them? Do you just merge the two networks?
So for now, it's something that we haven't done in the first part of our contribution to the project, because it was these are methods that are being developed by our partners, and so we need to wait the result. Our partners in IBM have produced an interactome of prostate cancer that we didn't have the time yet to integrate it into our model, but we are currently comparing the interactions that they have found and the interaction that we already have in the model. And this interactome is based on text mining from literature, data analysis, and database mining.
Just a quick one. What do you mean by better describe the output node when you said that, and when you showed the PCA?
Yes. So here, the output nodes, you can see them in purple. And actually, it's a bit difficult to relate this output to the rest of the model, because we have no real data on which sample is really shows a high angiogenesis, for instance, or migration or invasion. And we also have a few genes in the model that can be related to these different phenotypes. So for now, we have described quite well proliferation, apoptosis, quiescence, but the other outputs should be seen more as biomarkers, markers of EMT, for instance, of marker of migration, than real phenotypes. And this could be improved with more detailed interactions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I found this part on the discretization, basically, of transcript levels, and so quite interesting. So is it clear how much, I mean, it's still kind of discrete level, so is it clear how much of the variability is still conserved and how much is lost maybe during this process?
So actually, we have tried different methods, and we are still trying to see which is the best. We have been a bit disappointed by the discretization method, because with our method of stochastic simulation that allows continuous initial probabilities, normalization works best, works better. So integrating normalized values as initial probabilities works better as discretization, and this is probably because with discretization we lose quite a lot of information for distribution, for for data that is not possible to discretize. But we are still working on it.
I'm not running.
Great talk, thanks. You mentioned one of your inputs was hypoxia. How did you measure hypoxia?
Hypoxia, no, for now we don't measure it. We have no data on hypoxia, and we would love to have and to compare it with the results of our model. For now we describe hypoxia based on the literature, from what we know of the mechanisms of how hypoxia regulates some elements in the cell. That's about it.
Okay, I think we're done for this session. We would like to thank all the speakers for the nice presentations. And I think we'll reconvene at 4:30. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you in a while.